CapEx model, not an OpEx model. And so how do I think about this? And that's where we've done sessions in Chile Compras, in Colombia with CCE, in Mexico, and others. And so it's helping them understand where organizations like the United Kingdom, how they evolve, or Australia.
And are they also working more, thinking as a startup mind, and not like we use the long time for building a project, right?
Yeah, and that's where governments can act like a startup. I am convinced governments in Latin America can act like startups, and I see it every day. And so we're helping them is really accelerate faster, and it's in procurement, it's in training their IT staff. That's where the DigiGov initiative will definitely be out there. It's bringing global best practices into their regions. And so we're able, you heard Teresa talk about the AWS Summit, that's gonna be in Bogota. That's not the only event we're doing. We're gonna be doing things in Brasilia, we're gonna do things in Santiago, we're gonna do in Buenos Aires, we're gonna do in Mexico City and others. And so that helps really understand the pieces of what you get to see this week as a part of reInvent.
Jeff, if I could add two other anecdotes to add color to that. So, one thing we typically see in a government contract is they'll say they want prices to be fixed every year for, however many years the project's going to last. Well, we lower our prices over time. So why would you want a contract that locks in a higher price when you could, take on board the lower price thereafter? So that's an example of how the procurement officials, the contract officers really have to rethink what they're buying and how it behaves. And then to Jeff's point, just reimagining how a government IT project could run, or any IT project. So a great example is our Kinesis video streams. We connected the 15,000 cameras that we have in part of the Amazon business that are focused on security, and we're able to stream them in as a consolidated view in 3 days. For I think most other governments trying to do cameras on traffic lights or cameras at the airports, they would imagine that being a multi-month project, not something that could be done in a few days and at half the price. So that's really, it's the education of people and getting them to change their mind about not what cloud does generally. I don't like talking about cloud computing. I like talking about Amazon Web Services, which is a very different experience than even the other cloud options that are out there.
Do you think that legislation is prepared now for the government to act like a startup?
I think that it's on the move.
Okay.
I've had the delight every year I go to New York for UN General Assembly, and I get to meet heads of states from these countries and help teach them about cloud and what can do. And some of the laws were written before cloud even existed. And so the legislation has to, mature on things like privacy and others. We're seeing it move, and we're actually spending a lot of time with legislators just to understand what it means, so that they can represent their populace. As one president in Latin America said to me on this last trip, Jeff, I don't understand cloud, but I need to learn it because my populace is learning it, and I would need to know how I can help have government act more like a startup environment, and it's that environment that we're finding. In Canada, we had, I'll just use Canada because I was just up there, Minister Bryson, who's in charge of IT for shared services. He had a great comment that he made, and he said, I don't want to be a blockbuster government in a Netflix citizenry. And it's true. And so we're spending a lot of time with legislators now to help them just understand where there does have to be modernization, not just for Amazon, but it's for the business. After all, that's the customer and the partners are what are driving what we're doing.
And if I can add, Jeff, when you say, I think for us thinking Latin America, when you say we are working with, it's literally locally, daily. So when you guys knew, you have your source saying there was a meeting, there's AWS there, we are every day working directly with them on how to work with the countries, right? So just want to show, because there's a lot of things that comes from press, like, what are you doing this week? What are you coming here? So a lot of the thing is this long-term work with them, right?
So let's go around questions. We'll go around, we'll continue. I want to make sure we get every single one of you. Hit a couple of questions.
I would like to know, like in more details, like which are the best examples of AWS implementation in the governments throughout Latin America?
Well, I'll give you a couple of different examples. One you heard from Teresa in regards to INE in Mexico, running all the elections on top of it. Great cloud services application. Nothing. Huge spike of traffic, wrapped all around security and more. Other ones I go ahead, Ministry of Education in Guatemala has been a terrific, adopting more sophisticated workloads. Confirm cameras in Colombia, we've seen Permanente, as mentioned, with the city of Sao Paulo. We've gone ahead and seen amazing things. City of Buenos Aires, all the taxis are running on top of AWS. A marvelous story because of the other issues. They needed to very quickly and rapidly do a prototype and then roll out 18,000 taxis, I understand, in the city that are running. Now the government is running an application on top of AWS. I can go to Santiago. So every single country we're seeing it. And what's exciting to see in Mexico, Sagrapa and others that we're finding, SAT, big customer.
The tax authority.
The tax authority. And in fact, we just had some wonderful stories on security in Mexico and what we're doing specifically for government to have global best practices and more. And so I'd see it across all, and it's education too. It's nonprofits, but those are just some of the governments off the top of my head that we've worked with. Any other questions? Oh, I already did your questions for you.
Yes. What are the main challenges for cloud computing in the public sector in Latin America? You mentioned the education, but the regulation, the telecommunication networks, human resource, economic condition.
We're seeing, so one, I would say the spirit of innovation is alive in Latin America, period. It is, and we're seeing it in startups. Take your country. Four of the LATAM startup unicorns are in Argentina. Mercado Libre, big customer of ours, and others. What we're seeing is across with a mobile populace that's jumping to 4G and in some countries 5G time, they're leapfrogging some of the barriers that in other countries you still have, because you're having a mobile populace that's there. Take Brazil as an example. 52% of the populace is under 24 years of age. The way the government has to work with them is via mobile devices and more. And so that drives a modernization of the systems and more. So the areas that we're seeing right now that are occurring, one is just making sure that talent is there. Because if the talent is there, then the economic engines for a country in startups, in enterprises that want to adapt all this wonderful technology, in governments that want to be leaders, not laggards of technology, is there. So one is the talent. That's why, again, over 200 universities now in Latin America in AWS Educate. And why we went ahead and had the whole content moved to Spanish and Portuguese. Procurement for government, as I mentioned earlier, trading CapEx for OpEx. And as John mentioned, we've reduced price 67 times since we got started. But governments used to, wait, cost savings? How do I figure this one out? It needs to cost overruns. What can I do? Wait, what? And so we're working with procurement reform, legislative reform on in financial markets. So again, I'll go to Argentina. There were statutes that prohibited the financial technology sector, very vibrant in Argentina, from using the cloud. Central bank removed those.
Yes.
And so that was a big one. Tax reform, again, I'll just give them where you're at. Cloud services do not have VAT taxes as a part of it. That was recent. And so that helps your startup community. So instead of looking at a 28% VAT tax on top of that, which would stall a startup that wants to get going on, cash flow. And I used to do a startup, so I remember, we were wondering at times whether we get paid. Every little bit helps. So what we're finding is these blockers in some ways are being removed In Colombia, they're looking, right now, cloud services are exempt from that taxes anymore. That helps start up even more what President Duque wants to do with the orange economy in the startups in Bogota. So those are some, but we're seeing a rapid adoption across all segments of the business.
So the net is there really are no challenges, just people need to be open-minded, they need to really deeply investigate Amazon Web Services. They shouldn't rely upon others talking on our behalf, especially if it's a competitor. You know, people who know how to build word processors don't know how to do what we're doing. And so we hope that, you know, potential companies who want to be partners for AWS, local governments that want to really improve the services that they're offering will come to us directly. You know, the only challenge is we can't get there fast enough, and Jeff is a significant advocate for making sure we get the right level of resources across Latin America to serve the customers we have there. And I think you'll see with open-mindedness on their side and our ability to respond with all the programs we have, there really aren't going to be any challenges.
We'll continue around. You always ask good questions. Every time I meet you, you have a good question. Nothing today.
Actually, I was about to ask what stage we are in Latin America, but I think you already answered with your examples, like on his question, because we heard earlier from the counter-terrorist, like a really big project, and I was about to ask what stage we are, because in the past 2 years we heard a lot about trainings and training programs. You brought a conference, a training for Brasilia, I guess. So what stage we are now? We are actually doing things, innovations in public sector in Latin America and Brazil.
We're seeing in Brazil quite a rapid adoption on the government. We're seeing more at the state and local level than federal. I think federal has been slower, but now it's picking up steam. You may have recalled during the Zika virus Ministry of Planning, how they worked. For those that don't know, Ministry of Planning went ahead and worked on behalf with AWS. They got asked on Tuesday to consolidate, this was right before the Rio Olympics, to consolidate all the reports as to how government was fighting the Zika virus, because the International Olympic Committee and World Health were arriving on Friday. Think about what that is. In less than 3 days, you have to compile a report on what government is doing across all, and they leveraged AWS to go ahead and do that, to show over 240 ministries and departments what they were doing, and presented a document to World Health and International Olympic Committee that helped the games stay in Rio just during that outbreak, and practically show they were a keynote at our AWS summit. And so we're seeing things pick up very actively in Brazil. In government, it's been more state.
Sorry for interrupting, because do you remember the name Fiji? FID?
Oh, Fiji. Oh my gosh, this is one of the coolest things.
Yeah.
I'll give the brief just because of time. So in Sao Paulo, there's a nonprofit organization called Fiji, and what they do is they provide remote diagnostic care to rural communities for doctors, things like CAT scans, mammograms, and more. And so I had the opportunity to go visit them. They do over 5 million remote examinations a year, 150,000 live per month. And so I went into their command center. It's right in downtown Sao Paulo. And it's a darkened room. Have you been in there?
Yes.
Okay, you've been there? Okay, so feel free if you have it. It's a darkened room. There's 30 doctors all there with 3 monitors. One's a CRM system, one's looking at the image coming across, the other they're typing notes. They have, it's 24/7 doctor support. They have a sleeping room where the doctors go, and they're able to go ahead and provide this remote diagnostic care out. It was wonderful, and I asked them about and we'll get the case study, which is just published. What's exciting is not only do they provide that care out, the expertise in triangulating, but now starting to use some of our AI and other tools because they have massive quantities of data. How do they spot something faster on it? But they've also heightened the care out in the rural community. Misdiagnosis, less happening there, and more. And so we're seeing nonprofits have a really big push that's also helping governments in a lot of ways. Questions? Okay, we'll
I
continue
just
around.
want to say something. Perhaps someone will come because they have the room. We also have the opportunity to see about AWS
Yes,
educating
a trip.
coding. But no, I just want, let's use the time, but also say that Jeff will be here the week, so
Yeah, I'll be
also
here.
if we need, I wanna go specifically on one country, you can use it.
As well as this quiet person over here on technology, who is my right hand on network together, and of course, John. But we'll continue, we'll finish around.
Well, as we talked in the beginning of this conversation, we had a lot of transitions of government in Latin America. So actually, currently, what kind of services the AWS have with the federal government in Brazil, and how and if you guys have plans to keep or expand or increase this service with the new government. If you guys already talk with the transition team between the governments, how these conversations going, how the expectations do you have based in the first conversations?
Sure. So one is we're continuing to invest in Brazil, specifically our Sao Paulo region. Over 200 new updates, services, enhancements, exciting new technology we're bringing into Brazil. Plus just the continued expansion of our GRU facility. The second part is the programs that we're doing. And we're doing programs with startups in Sao Paulo. We're doing technical security trainings in Brasilia. We're continuing. That's continuing on with the new administration. Yes, we've worked with the new administration and the transition plans and all sorts of things they're going. They have some great ambitions that they want to go ahead and do. And it's going to be through using the cloud, they're going to recognize a lot of the campaign promises that they've had more rapidly so that the citizens can go ahead and see the benefits, not only in Brazil, I also made a comment in Mexico as well. And so what we're seeing is a couple of things happening. One is a continuation on security best practices. We live in a connected world, so how do we help protect the citizens? Second is modernization of government. Take the Ministry of Planning's recent RFP awards and more that have been out there. And they're moving fast. How do they go ahead and adopt? The cloud procurement, I think we're still on a good path. We're helping them understand how to do things in the federal side, especially with audits, which you're familiar with, and how government procures uniquely in Brazil, given a transparency federal law, 8666, that we go ahead and meet and exceed. And so, I think we got a good, momentum. We're continuing to prioritize what the customers are asking, not changing. And that doesn't change in any administration. That's what goes ahead and sets our cadence. Our government's priorities are our priorities. And that's how we're helping them be startups. And so that's where we're continuing.
Okay.
Ali, you mentioned several times about the Mexican elections. But which the main experiences of the cloud application in this case?
You mean specific for elections or other ones?
Okay,
So in Mexico, we've seen at the federal level as well as at the local level, an incredibly increase of adoption. And so I'll hit a couple, and Guillermo, feel free to jump in if I forget it. We've seen organizations like Ministry of Education set with Aprende 2.0 use AWS, Sagrapa on the agriculture, SAT in the tax authority side, and the state of Guanajuato and their migration to cloud technologies and more. On the election side, it was a project that was won actually by two partners, as Teresa mentioned earlier. And so together with the customer said, we want Amazon to be more, involved, help us. This is an election, big visibility. And so we brought the best teams in to go ahead and help ensure that it was, everything ran smoothly, which it did. That had the transparency, especially with all the government, all the external auditors and more that were looking through everything. And it was a really great experience for the two partners who won it. The two partners, again, do you remember the names?
Data Invest.
Yeah, were the two that won it, and we provided the support to make sure that it was successful as a part of that. And the government, ENA would be happy to chat, as well as share about their experience. But we're seeing a very rapid adoption, especially in the mobile market. So if folks don't know, this is kind of an interesting statistic. It's one that I watch. Outside of the United States, the two cities that have the biggest concentration of mobile developers that are working applications for all the wonderful cell phones, Sao Paulo, Mexico City. Globally.
Global.
Yep. Now,
Out
one
of
month, one city may be a little bit higher, and then the other goes, oh, wait, we got to catch, and it goes back in competition.
Like the
Your source,
traffic.
sorry?
What's that?
Your source for that?
I'll get the source of the report. It was on, I'm gonna get the right one, I don't wanna mistake it.
But it was.
Too many recording devices. I don't wanna accidentally. But if you think about it, it makes sense. Think about what's happening in Mexico City with mobile communications and the bandwidth capacity now and how people are using more of those. Same for Sao Paulo. And we're seeing more and more mobile apps coming. We're doing more startups within it.
I just had one additional comment about Mexico specifically, because sometimes people think about cloud like just move servers, and what you have experienced in Mexico was like the government thinks a different way. Like, I don't want to use servers only. I want to implement best practices, which was exactly what happened in India. They implement a solution with serverless. They spend more time thinking about design of the solution instead of thinking about the infrastructure. It's interesting because not all the time you see government think about it. How should do things in a way that I don't want to take care about the regular infrastructure. I don't care about routers, servers, or storage. I care about service. It's a one of experience that we face in Mexico, and have seen more and more customers in Mexico embracing this cloud native approach. So how to do things that can leverage the benefits of the cloud. For this reason, we are super excited to have Mexico working with us.
If you compare Mexico with São Paulo and about this behavior between the startups, and we have more difference or more proximity between these two cities. If you talk about this,
I see a couple trends happening in no specific order. One, I see a vibrant startup community that's driving economic development. There's just a culture that's occurring. Take Ola Code as an example, which is in Polanco. They're training developers for startups, and they're good. So we're seeing nonprofits jump on in to drive the economic side. The second is that we're seeing more startups in universities across globally. It's about the second year of college where we're seeing more startups. Think about it, just think about for all of us. If we come up with a great idea, let's get someone who knows how to develop, someone who can help on the infrastructure and how we're gonna go ahead here. You need a salesperson somewhere in there. But we could go ahead and come up with our ideas. And think about 99 Taxi, one of our big customers, and us. That's how this gets started. So what we're seeing is more startups running, and they're more starting in universities. And that's what's exciting. So a lot of commonalities of parts. I think there's a lot of excitement coming from those cities. Bogota, we're seeing the financial technology sector go definitely down in Buenos Aires. We're seeing it. Santiago's got a little bit of everything, which is kind of fun to see. What we've done with Startup Chile. We've continued. That's been
Santiago's growing with
years.
fintech, I think.
Fintech is definitely growing on that. Fintech's growing kind of everywhere. But I'll go ahead. I think government's really understanding how technology can be an economic driver. And I'll just maybe close because of time.
No, can I think
I want to share one story before you do. Okay? So I had the delight again. I go to New York every year for UN General Assembly. And during that time, President Hernandez of Honduras has been talking to us, how do you build a startup environment? And so I took him to, I asked if he had any extra time. And I took him down to our AWS pop-up lounge. So if you're ever in New York or if you're in San Francisco, of course if you're in Seattle, you gotta let me know personally. But in the other tip, come by. And so he came down and got to see the pop-up loft. It's down in the Soho area. And all of a sudden there's like 100 150 people all around. We started the meeting actually, he only was planning for about half an hour. He spent 2 hours there. And we were in this big room, it's about 4 times the size. Started just us talking, and then all of a sudden all the startups started coming. And all of a sudden people are going up to the help desk. How can I use this new Kinesis feature? I want to do this with AI or artificial. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, look at what's happening as a part of it. Government leaders are recognizing where startups are an economic engine. In the AWS cloud, where we currently have over 60% of the world's startups using AWS, Hulu, Netflix, Airbnb, and others. They're saying, wow, for the cost savings, scale, go global in minutes. Again, I'll go back to 99 taxis. They started in Brazil, now it's available in multiple Latin American countries. We're starting to see this. What's that?
First unicorn.
First unicorn, that's right. Take Mercado Libre. Started, now they're in multiple countries and so, that startup activity, and that's where Cloud Start and a variety of other programs that we have are those economic development programs we're doing with government.
And a trend that I have seen in those countries, something that didn't mention today, is about open data. So I have seen more and more government asking us.
Go ahead, sorry, Alex.
How to create a hub that allow the economic development. So open data is definitely what we have talked a lot in São Paulo specifically. Like let's take Fiji as an example, with all the X-ray images around. So when you think about share this data with other institutions, you are able to make the life of the population better. Let me pick you one example in São Paulo. One of our customers is Syro-Libanese Institute. It's an institute linked to the hospital, but their goal is nothing less saving lives. So they're using AWS to work with Genoma, and then working Genoma is how to identify some specific characteristics of the virus that help researchers to think about health in a different way. So basically what Syro-Libanese has been doing is how to provide focus for our researchers to find the new medicines. And it's interesting because not only save money, but also save lives and give the focus for researchers. I just picked this example because we're from Brazil, but we have seen around the globe. So how to create data that unleash innovation.
Jeff, I was just going to say that if you can share this more, like Camerite is a good example in Brazil on how you get the startup and the government identify you are the ones that can help us, and they work it together mapping crime. And also, I want to take advantage that we have all here in the room and talk a little bit about, we have a project in our office now, TechU, right? This is one that I'm fond of because we have the working education in the universities and institutions, but as Jeff was saying, that is the demand, the market, our customers, the government is asking, give me people ready for it, that even inside our offices we are working on how to prepare them for market. You want to talk more?
I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah.
So
It's his program. So I
this
could.
is very-
It's true.
It's important to share that we have a strong bias about diversity in TechU. So half is women and men inside the TechU.
Because TechU is all about how to bring people who sometimes lack some kind of experience, especially for Amazon standards, is how to make them ready, not for today, but for the future. So the idea of TechU is getting students and then provide a massive amount of training. And if you understand the US, fine. But if you are able to share the resources across our partners, our customers, it's a way to provide a mechanism for governments get a very high qualified people to change the country, to change the city, and to change the community. The idea of TechU.
Yeah, and it's one of many, and I guess I'll just go ahead and close. I want to be respectful of your time and the trip that Rachel has. Amazon is inspired by Latin America. The innovation that is occurring in all the countries using AWS cloud services, artificial intelligence, big data analytics, and more, are providing practical solutions for the customers. Those customers may be the citizens, they may be a nonprofit, they may be a faculty member that needs to use high-performance computing like University of Chile or others. We're continuing to invest in Latin America. We'll be investing in myriad of ways during the time, from programs to infrastructure to people to investments in the partners, so that really governments not only securely, but can go ahead and recognize the cloud, the benefits of cloud. They can go ahead and see where over 125 services, what the innovation of millions of active customers are having. And throughout my journeys, you know, I look forward, we'll be in all of your cities this year, multiple times, some of them. I look forward to the opportunity to spend more one-on-one time to continue to share what we're doing. I will go ahead and say, stay close with Rachel and Priscilla in team. I knew she was over there, so because we got a lot of announcements we're working on. You know, and in the interest of time, I think the world will go ahead and see the innovation of Latin America, and that's one of the best parts of our jobs. We do that right. We stay focused on the customer, what the partners have. Really, the innovation, the rest of the world, it's already starting to take notice. You heard Teresa's talk today, where she cited many, even more to come. Rachel, is there anything else in closing?
No, I was going to say that it's just starting. We have an exciting weekend. Thank you so much, guys, for it. And really, I wanted to join this group because I know how we are talking about, we have things to talk about our countries. It's great when you see the global examples, but how we can cascade this and show what is possible to do now and what is being done now. So now we have a session. It's not something that a mandatory thing, but like it has a session showing some students coding directly using AWS Educate. So if you guys want to join us, and then we will meet again. We have a
And then
special
if
announcement.
any of you want follow-ups, I'm familiar with each of your countries very deeply. If there's any follow-ups over the next couple of days, just please let Rachel, Priscilla, and the team know. I'll be happy to make the time. If not, I look forward to seeing you in your home countries during the visit. Thank you for making the trip.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.